County Agricultural Commissioner. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. Without regressing, but moving forward, I would suggest that in looking down into the future, that emphasis be placed on looking at risk assessment for pests or pests on the horizon that we will likely face. And I think this would have to be a collaborative effort with National Academy of Science, USDA, CDFA, University of California, Colorado State University system in general could contribute a lot to developing risk assessments just in a broad brush way. I've been doing this work for over 30 years, and biological control of our pests that have been introduced has been a popular end product of control programs, and as a result has been largely accepted. One of the hurdles we have, though, is that introduction of biological control agents are largely restricted due to the science of potential impact to agricultural crops. And that's an important assessment to make. So it's not just this arbitrary bring in biocontrol agents. But we have an opportunity here to take a look at what agencies are doing this kind of work. And the premier agency is USDA and various universities. And they need to have support, funding support, to be able to identify what those insects are, or the activities, and do the foreign exploration so they can bring them in, work them through quarantine systems so they're eligible for use, or understand them better. Certainly a Center for Biological Control, which has been discussed for many years and has been discussed to be housed or placed at the University of California, Davis. If you look at the history of IPM programs, virtually never got off the ground. There were several legislative acts that supported sustainability, agricultural, pesticide reduction acts, I could go on, and never received appropriate funding to lift those off the ground. And then when we have these problems, everybody relies on that's the model we want to follow. But in fact, those models don't exist because we don't have the appropriate infrastructure to carry those activities out. So I would suggest strongly that those issues be readdressed and not left off the table in this discussion. Everybody wants results, but nobody wants to step up and identify how you accomplish those. So I recommend that you take a look at that Center for Biological Control, the coordination and cooperation efforts that could be enhanced by international discussion on this topic, and then with the idea of making those resources available to take care of these problems that we have. So thank you.
Thanks for your patience, and I really appreciate this opportunity to be here and to speak. My name is Tammy Davis, and I work with an organic farm and nonprofit that researches biodiversity called the Regenerative Design Institute. And I just wanted to speak for exactly what he was saying was the research and development that's happening. How can we get off of the track of the war against insects and learn how to operate in harmony with nature and support the diversity that nature supports? And so we're learning to farm with a polyculture and many different crops that attract beneficial insects. And I believe that supporting a natural balance in our farming techniques will really eradicate programs like eradication. And so I would like to just say that we're really working hard. We don't want to be overhead sprayed against our will when we're here experimenting on how can we grow these important foods for the population without being interrupted with chemical sprays or some of the methods that are being enforced on farmers. And also, the farmers are so struggling already to make it financially, and I really want to support organic farming. And so I think that we just need to look at all the different ways that we're experimenting, and we can fund further these kind of experiments, and also just really look at what it is we're protecting our food source, our food supply. And what is the big picture? We're protecting our food supply by forcing farmers to spray poison on our land, and I think that's a big mistake. So I really appreciate your support and the testimony.
I'm Barbara Deutsch, and I'm very grateful I attended this hearing and heard all of these comments. It alarms me to think of biological control, especially a center for it, considering when I hear that people are afraid that a moth, that there's no evidence ever harmed anything, might harm redwoods, and I think about how the redwoods have disappeared, and then I hear how the goal of this program is to make it possible to keep shipping products worldwide, but the reason that the moth is a danger is because of modern transportation. There are a lot of contradictions that it seems to me it would be good for us to look more closely at, including the language we use about insects. And I would like to recommend to those who are working to resolve these contradictions that they read Edmund Russell's War and Nature, which carries on the work of Rachel Carlson and shows how, since we have been able to get engines into the air, we have more and more viewed insects as enemies and enemies as insects. And one predator of insects, especially of caterpillars, that has not been mentioned today is songbirds. I garden for butterflies, and anyone who gardens for butterflies will tell you that the problem is you don't have caterpillars, because if you garden for butterflies, your garden is full of songbirds, and they have to have the caterpillars to form the eggshells, and they have to have the caterpillars, many of them, to feed the young. And it may be with the environmental destruction that our species is so good at, we're going to be grateful for caterpillars of almost any species if we do what Peter Steinhardt has recommended we do. He said, if we are intelligent tinkerers, the first thing we will do is to keep among us whatever species of songbirds are still present. I brought some photographs of songbirds in our apple tree, and I thought I would just let you look at them. And I wanted to make a recommendation on no scientific basis, but on the basis of having spent a little time on a farm where horses were an essential part of the workforce when I was a girl. And I think farmers, if they are brought into the decision making, which it seems to me is the only way to do it right, would be open to the suggestion that caterpillars be encouraged, and there be hedgerows and they work with the project that Wes Jackson and Wendell Berry are advocating of the 50-year Farm Bill, and we develop as food sources perennial plants that are natural in California, because when you have all your crops from Europe and other places, of course the associates of those plants are going to be here, and instead of managing and eradicating, James O. Lucan is the one who said, invasive is not a scientific term. Pest is not a scientific term. These are words that have psychological coloration. And if you change back from the ethic of eradication that he says we went to without a discussion to the ethic of conservation, then it seems to me you'll be creating a center for biological diversity, which would protect us, a very new species compared to moths and butterflies, which are over 100 million years in existence. It would protect us much better than the programs that are underway at the moment.
Thank you, Senator Florez. Thank you very much for holding this hearing.
My name is Yannick Phillips. I've written my comment, I think probably rewritten it about 5 times, but great testimony today from everybody and the panelists. Again, my name is Yannick Phillips. I'm a 3rd-generation Californian, and my grandparents farmed citrus in San Diego. So I greatly appreciate Aaron coming up today from San Diego area and testifying. In the fall of 2009, I began to work with California farmers and growers and business people after hearing concerns from those farmers on the LBAM program, not the mob. So together, in an effort to get sign-ons to a letter which asked that the LBAM program quarantines be ended, the funding for the program be cut, and the MOF itself be reclassified, I wanted to read part, I'm not going to read the whole thing because I know it's been a long meeting, but I wanted to read parts of it. This is basically an excerpt of the farmer press release. Farmers, growers, together, farmers, growers, nursery owners, plant wholesalers, produce distributors, restaurant owners, and business proprietors from around California have signed a letter asking that the light brown apple moth eradication program be ended along with its quarantines, and that the classification of the moth be changed from a Class A serious pest to a Class C of minor concern. Farm Bureau member and conventional apple grower Dave Hale from Sonoma County says the current program accomplishes nothing except more paperwork for farmers. Signatories from Sonoma Valley to the Yolo County to the Monterey Bay Area to Fresno want the program ended because it wastes taxpayer dollars and its quarantines hurt local producers. The economic damage from LBAM has stemmed solely from these government-mandated sanctions and not from the insect itself. Peggy Da Silva of Veritable Vegetables from San Francisco, the oldest distributor of organic produce in the United States, says that for more than 35 years, our company has supported farmers who approach pest problems in ecologically sound ways. Many smaller independent farmers have been hurt by regulations that do not respect the great skill farmers have in managing their farms, producing healthy crops, and contributing to our state's economy. The LBAM eradication program with its zero tolerance policy has meant that a single potential sighting of LBAM in a field or nursery can shut down an entire operation for weeks. Former California Farm Bureau Federation President Doug Mosbar has said that trading restrictions pose a particular burden for organic farmers and for small-scale farms. That's a quote, right? And he's absolutely right on that. Almost 100 conventional and organic farms and nurseries, both large and small, have signed the letter, and an equal number of business supporters of the farmers have also signed on. I'm submitting for the record the 2 separate blank letters mentioned. Let's see. Originally, all the names of the farmers were going to be released to the CDFA and USD Secretary Carlson and Vilsack, but after much concern and fear from the farmers that were signing on, the decision to keep their names confidential was chosen. But I did bring the signatures with me as proof, and I'm happy to go through it. It's the witness here, so 100 farmers are here today on paper. I find this really a tragedy that our farmers so clearly are scared of CDFA. I collected a lot of these signatures individually from farmers. Excruciatingly, painfully slow, but I got to hear their story one by one. And as a Californian, as somebody whose grandparents farmed, this is really so scandalous. So if I kind of understand this well, our tax dollars go to an agency that is supposed to be supportive of farmers, but it has become clear that farmers are terrified of this agency. And in addition, in the urban area, CDFA with a warrant can cross over our private properties and force this program. This is just really, truly scandalous. This should be an embarrassment to CDFA and to every Californian who knows these facts. Since this press release that was released on March 8th, more farmers and growers and business people have signed on, and a few who could not attend really wanted me to read their short statement. We have Sonoma County Karen Van Kane, agricultural lender, rancher, farmer. She says this LBAM issue is negatively impacting Californians' farmers' ability to obtain financing. She lost the selling of a property because of LBAM. Napa County world-renowned French Laundry restaurant. Our entire restaurant group, which is the French Laundry, Bouchon Bakery, and Ad Hoc, support our farmers in an effort to reclassify LBAM and lift the quarantines. Sonoma County Gutierrez Seed Bank sells seeds nationwide, with the majority of the business occurring in California. They actually are based in Missouri and have moved one of their businesses in California because it's so heavily supported. We feel that the LBAM quarantines are hurting not only our California farmers, but businesses like us and all taxpayers. A Farm Bureau member quarantined apple grower who would not give his name just simply said the program doesn't stop the pest and this costs a lot of money. And we recently had Alice Water from Chez Panisse sign on as well. We will not stop collecting names until the program is ended. And I would like to humbly suggest that if CDFA will not call off the LBAM program once and for all, that this committee, if possible, demand congressional members to hold a hearing. And after all the testimony today, it's clear that there does need to be a shift on how insects are dealt with, and a paradigm shift is needed. So I thank you very much.
Thank you for submitting that. Any more public comment this time?
Go ahead.
My name is Gutierrez. Just a very brief follow-up. It's obvious that the public's against it. There is no scientific evidence that it really is a serious pest. It's going to be a limited distribution. And I recall my first case of dealing with CDFA, they were trying to eradicate a thing called grape leaf skeletonizer. This was back in 1976. And the CDFA people were approaching the California Wine Advisory Board to seek their support to continue an eradication campaign. The map that they showed of all the places they had eradicated this particular pest were red dots on a map of California. It looked like the state of California had measles. What they were doing was not eradication. What they were doing was spot pest control. And it appears that the tactics that they finally have adopted for light bomb apple moth is more of the same. The science does not support what they're trying to do. And if they're only doing control, that means the organism will probably achieve its maximum geographic space, which will be determined by weather and by natural enemies. I would urge the committee to stop the program.
Okay.
My name is Beth Brangan from the Ecological Options Network, and I'm so blessed to be from beautiful West Marin, where it's surrounded by organic farms, dairies, and ranches. And I wanted to, I brought several things here. I have a letter from our Bolinas Community Public Utility District that is addressed to the CDFA, and I won't read the whole thing, but just one point, that the Bolinas community, well, they say, first of all, that the draft programmatic environmental impact report is fatally limited in scope because, among other things, it doesn't adequately analyze the potential adverse effects of the light brown apple moth eradication program on non-target species. We're all very aware of the need for balance in our ecosystems, and caterpillars are food for the birds and the spiders, and that's why they're really not a problem. The Bolinas community remains adamantly opposed to aerial or ground spray application of any pesticides within this county to control the LBAM. And we repeat our position that there is substantial evidence that eradication of the species is neither feasible nor achievable. And now, of course, APHIS agrees with them. And they also copied this letter to the fellow water districts in Marin County and the Point Reyes National Seashore, who is a significant landholder in West Marin, asking them to join in opposition to the LBAM control program. So they're asking that you could do everything in your power to prevent that program from ever being implemented. I also have a letter from the Board of Supervisors of Marin to the officials at CDFA, and I'll just mention one of the points which hasn't really come up here yet, and that is that the public comment period to respond to the draft PEIR for the LBAM closed on September 20, 2009. And however, comments on the final PEIR released in February 2010 were restricted to only public agencies that commented on the draft PEIR, with no provision for comments by the general public. We believe that comments from all members of the public should not be excluded from consideration in such an important public policy issue as the controlled and eradication of LBAM from California. And they recommended that the public comment period be extended for 30 days and that all comments received be reviewed and responded to before the final PEIR is certified. I don't know if there's anything that's possible now that it is. I have also a resolution from the Bolinas Community Center opposing the California Department of Food and Agriculture's aerial and ground application program to control the light brown apple moth. And I won't read that whole thing, but it's making all of the points that have been made here today. But I do want to read a letter in behalf of folks from the Don't Spray California group who couldn't be here today. Dear Senator Florez and members of the Senate Food and Agriculture Committee, we are unfortunately unable to attend today's hearing, as most of the members of Don't Spray California are disabled by chemical injuries. It is difficult for us to access many public meetings. There are far too many errors in CDFA's final programmatic EIR to address in a brief public comment, including repetitive pictures of alleged damage, in one case the same exact photo 3 times. CDFA has set aside no public comment period to respond. We are outraged that Secretary Kawamura certified the FPEIR yesterday and a notice of determination was posted preempting this hearing. Even though the FPEIR document that has been certified continues to refer to the LBAM program as an eradication program. In the CEQA findings that preface Secretary Kalamora's certification letter, CDFA states that the agency is now implementing a, quote, systematic statewide program to control and suppress, and in some cases, eradicate LBAM. Since LBAM continues to be classified as an actionable pest, which requires quarantines, the implication is that this program will likely become another permanent program, similar to the gypsy moth slow the spread program, that has been poisoning states back east for over a decade, following many decades of failed eradication programs. Such a gypsy moth program visited California a year ago when CDFA bullied elders and disabled people in the Ojai Valley, injuring several with forced pesticide applications, actions with the FPEIR describes as potentially necessary in the LBAM program as well. And I have to say, these are my own words, this is what all our communities are really concerned about, Senator Florez. We're not reassured by no aerial spraying because they can come after us with the high pressure spray hoses from a truck or a backpack. While many have been most concerned about the aerial pesticide applications of the LBAM program, please understand that the so-called pheromone pesticides are specifically designed to be constantly present in the environment, regardless of the application method. Both the industry and USDA describe this process as saturating areas with the chemicals. This constitutes long-term chronic exposure. The acute tests that were done on the synthetic LBAM pheromone resulted in alarming effects on the organs and immune systems of test animals. Another synthetic pheromone, Disparlure, for gypsy moths, has been shown to persist in the human body for at least 17 years. More information about this and other aspects of this program can be found on our website at don'tspraycalifornia.org. These are serious concerns which CDFA's risk assessment approach regards as negligible and acceptable risks. Those of us who have been injured by these and other pesticides regard such callous determinations that some segments of the population are expendable as violations of our human rights and as threats to our lives. We ask that you step in and exert your power as a committee with oversight over CDFA and prevent this agency from moving forward with this fraudulent and toxic program. Thank you. And I have to say that all of this discussion makes me so much more compassionate to the farm workers situation, which is hideous, just hideous, and totally unacceptable in the supposedly civilized society. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay. It's now nearing 5 p.m. I do want to thank everyone for coming. I'd like to say give us the opportunity to digest all of the good recommendations that have been made here. And we probably will have another hearing just to close on this issue, to get some closure. We may possibly have legislation that gets to some of the things that were mentioned here. And I think we want to make sure that when we all leave this place, and that means some of us who are leaving and the governor and others, that we try to have a closure on this as an issue so that we're not redoing some of this. And I'm very sensitive to the fact that one pesticide was mentioned today, and I really appreciate people bringing that up as well. So we will take this very good hearing, and we will take all information. You should have a transcript of this next 2 or 3 weeks. And let's go through this, and we'll write a very detailed letter to CDFA and try to get some follow-up in terms of what they need to do to close this issue for everyone. And I do appreciate everyone traveling here and giving us their testimony. I didn't know we had a hearing in August. And I'm sure for those of you that were here in August and gave testimony, it's almost as though we should have just done what we said in August, because we had to go through this entire process to get the same, if you will, issue to the forefront, which is, eradication is really not the issue here at all. It's always been about finding other ways to deal with something that's been here for a very, very long time. Probably still will be here for a very long time. And we're trying to figure out what's the best means to deal with that. And if we need to deal with it at all. So I think that's an issue that we will take under advisement, and don't be surprised if we see some legislation for the end of the session. So I'm going to adjourn. Thank you.